So as we know, there's a lot of friction for developers today. Onboarding is super tough. There's a lack of knowledge of how to access appropriate documentation, assuming there is any. There's a lack of best practices or golden paths as we know them. And then there's a lot of tools, right? The developers need to understand what tools are available to them and how to integrate with existing tool chains. The cloud native development landscape is pretty complex. Just take a look at what's available to them. And the bottom line is that tools and processes are confusing. All this confusion slows down developers, lowering their productivity and adoption. And so now we're hearing an increased interest in IDPs. So let's talk about how IDPs can eliminate friction for developers.
Yeah, so I think that in the next 5-7 years, there's going to be a lot of focus on IDP. And you can see here a definition of IDP. IDP here is as in internal developer platform, not identity system. It's an overlap in the acronyms. And I think where we are is that we figured out the infrastructure. If you follow the best practices, you can probably run your Kubernetes clusters or OpenShift clusters pretty well. And that gave a lot of benefits on running application and the stability of this application in production. But the life for the developers has not gotten any better. In some cases, it's actually gotten harder. So IDP for me is what we're going to build on top of the infrastructure to make the life easier for the developers. And this, at least at this point, it's a very large integration exercise with tens of developer tools that have to come together and provide a seamless experience. You can use this definition. We took it from internaldeveloperplatform.org. It's probably one of the best sources for ideas on IDP. I think of IDPs as from the capability standpoint, and I think at least there are 4 capabilities that an IDP should provide to your developers. One is onboarding and a seamless experience on onboarding, possibly 0 tickets, so ticketless experience when onboarding on OpenShift, some self-service screen, and then you're ready to go. Then you need to take care of the inner loop, and the previous presenter did a very good job at explaining the difficulties there. Then you need to take care of the outer loop. And finally, when your application is deployed in production, maybe with the GitOps tool, you need to provide observability out of the box.
Okay, great. So on top of the IDE, developers need a nice UI, like a single pane of glass, to help them be more productive. So this is where Backstage enters, right? It's an open source framework for building developer portals, which was donated to CNCF by Spotify. It has a vibrant ecosystem with over 80 plus plugins, and they already have 400 plus adopting companies. So it's not surprising to learn that we at Red Hat actually have a number of internal teams who are POCing or using Backstage today. And we also know that we have a number of customers who are starting to build IDPs and are investigating how Backstage can also help them. So now we're going to have Raffaele do a little demo for us.
So I have an example of how we can build an IDP on top of OpenShift and put Backstage in front of it as the UI for the portal for the developers. So it's a long demo. I'm going to just give you a little bit of overview. So this is Backstage, and I have created an application, which is an onboarding process that gives me some namespaces. Let's say the SDLC namespaces, dev, QA, prod, in a cluster. And then I have deployed some components. I created some components for these applications. There are 2 here. And so you see the application is my app, and these are 2 components that exist here. These are Quarkus microservices. So Backstage detects all of this, and I can go and get some details on this component. Okay, Backstage understands the ownership and the dependencies And then it's integrated with SonarQube, so you get some scorecard here. And then I have created some links. So as a developer, the first thing that I do after I onboarded my new component is probably going to go and edit the code. So I'm not going to launch it now, but I go here, and I'm ready with my inner loop, and this timed out. But I made the same choice as the previous speaker, inner loop inside the browser. The browser works everywhere. Doesn't matter what VPN you have, doesn't matter what hardware you have, what OS you have, this will run everywhere, right? Once I'm done with the inner loop, I can commit, and the pipeline will start, right? I can see the pipeline also from Backstage. If I go here, and if I drill down, I can go to the actual pipeline view, which is on, in this case, running on GitHub Actions. I chose one that has failed, but there are other instances where it runs. When the pipeline ends, I can, I will do the CD part, right? So I go to my GitOps. This is the Day 2 infrastructure GitOps view. As a developer, I get another GitOps instance where I can see only my applications. So here there is a root app. I use the app of apps pattern. Here there is a root app that controls the other apps. There is one app per environment and per component. And see, they're all green right now. Once this deploys, if you do GitOps for tenants, you probably want to do progressive deployments. So I use Argo rollouts to do that. We can see that here we have 2 rollouts that were successful. And then, as I said, once the application is running, you probably want to give some metrics out of the box. I don't have this piece in this demo. So this was very fast, but you can come to me afterwards if you want to see more details on how this works.
All right, thanks for sharing that. So keeping true to open source, as many of you have seen or heard today, Red Hat has started to contribute to Backstage, and Backstage has welcomed us with open arms. As I mentioned, I'm a product manager in developer tools, where our mission is developer productivity, and we're always looking to solve developer challenges. We've made some successes in delivering our OpenShift Developer Console, ODO, OpenShift Dev Spaces, the Developer Sandbox, and this morning you've also heard more about Podman Desktop and more. This IDP problem area is one that we've been following closely, and we see some traction in the community, and know that a lot of our customers are interested in Backstage, so we want to help our customers. As a first step, we've made a Helm chart available to get Backstage up and running on OpenShift or any Kubernetes cluster. That QR code brings you directly to that Helm chart if you want to check it out. We've also published an initial blog on developersredhat.com yesterday, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's more to come on this journey towards a developer platform for OpenShift developers. So with that, if you're building an IDP using Backstage or even thinking of it, feel free to reach out to one of us, and we'd be happy to work with you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.